Okay.
Good evening. I'm going to call this meeting to order of Point Edward Village Council. It's October the 24th at 5 o'clock. That's okay. Okay. We acknowledge that this land on which we are gathered today is part of the ancestral lands of the Chippewa, Ottawa, and Potawatomi peoples, referred to collectively as the Anishinaabe. It is through the connection of the Anishinaabe with the spirit of the land, water, and air that we recognize their unique cultures, traditions, and values. Together as treaty people, we have a shared responsibility to act with respect for the environment that sustains all life, protecting the future for those generations to come. Is there anyone with pecuniary interest?
I have none.
No,
I have none.
none, no. And
I declared one for the Conservation Authority as I'm a member of their board.
okay, thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Grimes is in Nashville, but is taking time out of his vacation to join us for the meeting tonight via Zoom.
Hello, y'all.
Oh, the modern technology. Okay, so we have a delegation today. So I'm going to, could I have someone to invite Mr. Ken Phillips from St. Clair Conservation Authority into the bar,
I'll invite
please?
Mr. Phillips.
Seconder, thank you. Council Burgess, all in favor? Okay. So
Thank you.
thanks for coming today.
My pleasure and privilege to be here, Madam Mayor and members of council. So the purpose of my discussion tonight is primarily to talk about changes to our budgeting structure that were mandated by the province. So in the presentation you were given, what's happened is the province has declared that our programs have to be and services have to be divided into three main categories. So category one, they're the mandatory programs and services, or the ones that the province has deemed we shall and must do. So those are things like flood forecasting and warning, planning and regulations, preservations of our own property. So these are our non-recreational areas. So that means we have to make sure they're like woodlots, those types of things have to be in good shape, and as well as corporate services. Just to forewarn council, one of the challenges we faced was that neither the conservation services nor the corporate services were ever funded through levy. So we warned the province these things were going to happen across the province collectively as CAs. We're facing about a $900,000 shortfall. We are not doubling our levy this year. Our board passed a motion.
Fine, thank you.
Our board passed a motion to have a dedicated 2% increase in our levy for the next several years to try and make up that shortfall, to stretch it out over to lessen the burden on our municipal partners. The category two programs are those programs which we would provide to them on behalf of the municipalities. So the primary one we were doing was natural heritage review. So if you're building a subdivision, you have to look at the wetlands, trees, those sorts of things. So we would enter into agreement with our municipal partners for that planning purpose, but that I just use as an example because we are no longer permitted to do natural heritage review by the province. That is the purview of the municipality to do now. Finally is our category three program. So that's a lot of the other work that we do. And in these regards, as one of my colleagues says, it's the nice things we do that people in general public like. So in our case, next slide, please, we move to, I've looked at three main program areas that we would be seeking funding for from our municipal partners. First is education and community outreach. So just so council's aware, in terms of the schools that are within the catchment area for Point Edward, we see about 1,100 students a year. Our programs go from kindergarten to grade 12. And we also do a lot of outreach with the community. So I'm trying to get out more. One of the things I've been doing recently is getting out to any service groups, any agency of the municipality would like to host us, talking about what residents can do to help flood proof their homes. Little things, not huge projects, but just things, recommendations we can make that we have information from other CAs. So that would be part of that. The other is conservation services. So that's our tree planting program. And finally, our land, private land stewardship. So these are projects we would undertake where a municipality or a private landowner would approach us and saying, I'm looking at building a wetland, or I'm looking at I need help. I've got cattle going into my river. What can I do about it? So the bottom picture there is what's called a fencing project. So we created both a buffer zone and a fencing project. So that keeps the cattle out of the water. And the buffer zone helps trap phosphorus before it gets into the river stream. So next slide, please. With regard to what the budgeting is for these things, we did a 5-year annual cost for each of the programs. And then we looked at it from what our apportionment cost would be for the municipality. Now, because we don't do private land stewardship, Point Edward's just not an area that we would be doing that type of work or any conservation services work. We're not requesting any funds from the municipality for those programs. What we would request is that you consider $3,800 contribution to our school and community education program outreach programs. This is a negotiation. This is entirely up to council whether you wish to support this. But we would hope that you would take into consideration the number of students and people we see and certainly help us with this. This is these programs, the challenges with them, the reason I picked these three is because these are programs we have relied 100% on donations and grants. So the donations for education program are significantly down. We used to get one major donation a year. They've decided not to support us anymore after 20 years and moved on. And the province is changing the grants left, right, and center, so we can't apply for any of them. So it's getting very awkward for us to seek funding. So it's hoped that through accumulated municipal support, we can provide some stability for our programs, ensure they be delivered. And with that, Madam Mayor, that's all I have. So I'm here to answer any questions anyone might have.
So, for example, the request to donate to the school, the scholarship program, when would you, like, if we were to take that to our budget for consideration, we confirm our budget in March?
Yeah, so I would just need some sort of assurance from council by December 31st of this year. I did ask for, like, the way the province set it up is we could ask for extensions, but we had to have all of our extension requests in by October the 1st. And this is my 13th council I've been to this. So there are a couple I knew. I'm not going to get to the point, but really, even if you just agree in principle that this is an agreement you'd like to enter into by the 31st, so it can be built into your budget whenever. But so long as an agreement is in place, then we can go forward from there.
So I'm a bit confused. So agreement in principle that we would donate without confirming what we would donate?
No, it's the amount,
Oh, we
yeah.
have to confirm that amount.
You can make up the decision of whatever the amount, this is the maximum amount I would request. Is what's in the presentation is the $3,800. But if you want to give us $1,000, $500, nothing, that's entirely up to the discretion of council. So. But yeah, so long as we have an agreement ready to go theoretically by the 31st of December, I can let the province know that yes, the municipality will or not support us, then we'll be fine.
Okay, does anyone have questions?
Just have one. I just want to confirm, you said 2% increase for the next number of years?
For specifically for the category 1 programs that we have received funding for. So our proposed budget that's going to our board on Thursday is 4%. So it's 2% for that, and then a 2% basically for inflation and other costs. And then the sum would be above and beyond.
Okay, so
We would just refer this to
that's
the
what I was
committee,
thinking.
the
which is trying to
finance
think.
committee, because they'll meet
Exactly.
in November.
Yeah, we could review it. We'll be prepared to give you an answer by December.
Okay.
I think we can do that.
Yeah, if we can refer this, I think that's probably the appropriate thing
Yeah.
to refer it to the finance committee and let them have a look at it.
Okay,
In November.
so then that would be like, actually, it's November the
14th.
14th is our committee meeting for finance. So
And in terms of the agreement itself, I believe I sent it to Jim, but it's a very standard, like we're using the
Right.
exact same one for municipalities.
Okay.
It's pretty easy to follow through on my notes.
well, appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming.
So we should have a motion to refer this to finance.
I'll make the motion short for this.
Thank you. Seconder.
I'll second that.
I forgot to ask, is there any other questions before we've done that? Okay,
Thank you.
we'll refer it
Yeah.
in November and get back to you. Thank you. Oops. And our next delegation, I need a motion to invite Janet Beaver into the bar to give us a presentation on municipal policing from the OPP.
Also moved.
Thank you. Seconder, thank you. Okay.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the invitation to join you today. As mentioned, my name is Janet Beaver. I am a civilian with the OPP's Municipal Policing Bureau. I've been with the OPP for 15 years, and I've done work in communications, policy, police supply and weapons, and now municipal policing. So any questions you may have, I will draw on my experience to respond to.
Do you want to have questions throughout, or would you like us to hold them till the end?
Perhaps at the end, because
Sure.
sometimes I explain things in a next slide.
Okay, let's do it that way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Okay,
Yes.
wonderful, thank you.
Are you getting good sound, Greg?
Wonderful. Next slide, please. Thank you for the invitation to be here today. I've been asked to talk to you about three main topics. OPP service delivery and billing model will be high level. And then we'll talk about contract expiration options and the Community Safety and Policing Act. Next slide. Oh, there we go. So the OPP has a strategic plan, as many organizations do, and that strategic plan includes a vision. Now, I'm not going to walk you through our whole strategic plan, but I would like to draw your attention to our vision because it really does encapsulate how the OPP delivers services across the province. So our vision is safe communities in a secure Ontario, municipal policing, provincial policing. So safe communities, local policing through local detachments, in this case, the Lambton County Detachment, and a secure Ontario would be the provincial side. And the OPP delivers both of these services simultaneously through our officers across the province. So we need a system to keep track of that. Next slide, please. Very good. So we use something called the integrated service delivery model. And what that means is we have frontline officers who are delivering both provincial services and municipal services on the same shift, often in different municipalities. And what this allows us to do is to appreciate economies of scale and to deliver all of those services efficiently and effectively to our clients. To municipalities, it offers flexibility, it offers coordinated policing strategies with local partners, and allows communities to engage and partner with agencies outside of the boundaries. Key to this integrated service delivery model is we also use something called borderless policing, where closest to the officer that is closest to a call will respond. So they may have been, they may be from another area, but if the call comes in and our GPS shows an officer is close to that call, then that officer is dispatched. So it's essentially borderless policing. So we need a system to keep track of all this because we have officers delivering provincial, municipal services, different municipalities. So we use something called the Daily Activity Reporting System. We call it DAR. And the DAR system tracks all of our officers' activities by location, by type of activity. And what this allows us to do is all of the folks, we have some very, very clever folks back at headquarters who sharpen their pencils and sift through all of this DAR data. And they're able to allocate a municipality's calls for service. Out of all of the DAR calls, they're able to allocate them to each municipality as appropriate. So that way, Village of Point Edward is only paying for calls in your area, only for municipal responsibilities and not for provincial responsibilities. And so speaking of those, yes, next slide, please. Of the municipal and the provincial responsibilities, I'm just going to explain that quickly. This is from our strategic plan. We're currently in the process of developing our new one. That strategic plan is dated 2020 to 2021. In that time, we had a budget of $1.2 billion. And you'll see that that is divided into two main categories here. On the right, we see provincial and specialized responsibilities. This includes policing in highways, waterways, and trails, aircraft enforcement, major investigations, tactical teams, and true, they come in as needed. It includes Indigenous policing as well as unincorporated territories. These are services that are delivered across the province, wherever the OPP delivers service, and there is no cost recovery for any of these services. Municipalities do not pay directly for these services. On the other side of the page, we see municipal policing resources. And these are the resources that the government asks the OPP to facilitate collecting from municipalities. And these are costs to cover things such as frontline officers, supervision, civilian support staff, vehicles, equipment, uniforms, and so on. So municipalities pay roughly 34%, or municipalities reimburse the government 34% of this $1.2 billion. And so how is that done? That's pretty complicated to get it done fairly and accurate. So on the next slide, yes, we use the OPP billing model, and the OPP billing model uses lots of different factors to develop your bills and get them out there annually. And you'll see those bills are divided into three main categories. Those are base services, calls for service, and other costs. The base service cost is allocated amongst all municipalities on a per property basis. So right now it's roughly $165 per property that the OPP polices across the province. And you might think of this as the fixed portion of the bill. This is for proactive policing, training, administrative duties. Then the next section is calls for service. This is when someone picks up the phone and calls the police to respond to whatever event is going on in the moment. Then there's a call for service that is billed in accordance with time standards to a municipality. The third section of a bill would be other costs, and that covers things like overtime, court security, accommodation, cleaning, all based on usage and contract arrangements that the municipalities may have. Now, I'm not going to get into Village of Point Edward's bill today. That was just a quick overview. If you would like to go over your bill at another time, I'm happy to discuss that with you. I understand that you would be more interested in talking about your contract expiration options. So right now, Point Edward does have a contract with the OPP that expires at the end of this year. As a municipality, you have three options: to extend the contract, to renew the contract, or revert to a non-contract arrangement. Now, for the purpose of discussion, an extension and renewal are essentially the same from a municipality's perspective. All of these options will cost the same amount, so there is no cost difference between any one of these options. If you opt to extend or renew your contract, it will last for the term that you select or until the Community Safety and Policing Act comes into effect. As soon as that act comes into effect, it will cancel all of our contracts, and we will revert to the CSPA under the legislation provided by the ministry. So the process for these options are listed below here, but really the option for the municipality is you decide on the term of your renewal, and then let me know, and I would do any paperwork if you decide to extend or renew. If you would prefer to revert to a non-contract arrangement, that is perfectly fine. OPP's service will continue seamlessly in your area. What will change though is some of the behind the scenes things, like you will not be required to maintain a police services board. You have the option of having a CPAC, a Community Policing Advisory Committee, if you so choose. Would have less input into local priorities and detachment commander selection. And you may have less eligibility for some ministry grants. Also, there is no option for any enhancements. So if you wanted to have an enhancement of a dedicated position to conduct duties over and above adequate and effective policing, then that would not be an option under a non-contract arrangement. So that's a really quick overview of some options, the 3 options that are available to you for your contract expiration. I'm happy to work through those with you. And yeah, and now let's go to the next slide, please, with the CSPA, the Community Safety and Policing Act. So this act was introduced in 2019 and has yet to be put into force. When the CSPA and the regulations do come into force, it will repeal and replace the Police Service Act. Sections 67 to 71 of the CSPA do provide details on the detachment boards. And the government has been working on associated regulations to roll out CSPA, as well as, which includes regulations on how these OPP detachment boards will work. It will include a transition period. So there will be a transition period to move from a police services board to an OPP detachment board. Every OPP detachment will have at least one OPP detachment board comprised of local representatives. The process of establishing those boards is a process between the ministry and the municipality. The OPP is outside of that process. I understand the ministry has been in touch with municipalities about the composition of your boards, so you already have a sense of what that might look like for you. Under the CSPA, the distinction between a contract, non-contract, and a contract municipality will be gone. All municipalities will have equal access to apply for ministry grants, and all municipalities will have the option to pursue enhancements if they desire. So it evens the playing field a little bit for our municipalities. Once the CSPA is implemented, there are no anticipated changes to the OPP billing model. And on the next slide, I have some resources available for you. I don't have an extensive amount of resources because this is a ministry-driven initiative. However, I have the link here for the location where the ministry posts regulations for preview and to solicit input from municipalities. Some are posted there now, so I invite you to go and review what's on there now. And also, the Ontario Association of Police Services Boards is putting together a training initiative in November, and it's about transitioning to OPP detachment boards. I understand it's about 1.5 hours. It's a virtual session, and it's open to all of us as far as I know. So I invite you to check that out and pursue that if it is of interest to you. I've also contacted the local ministry representative for this area. His name is Ron Leclerc, and he's able to respond to any specific questions you might have about the CSPA. He would be the go-to person for any specific questions. I have chatted with Ron, and so I gave him a heads up that I'm sharing his contact information in this presentation. So he's ready if you have him.
We're familiar with him. He attended virtually our last police board meeting.
Oh, look. And the next slide has my contact information. That is my cell number. There are no phone menus to go through. I answer my phone. I invite you to give me a call if you have any questions at all. I'm happy to respond. So that's a quick presentation for you. I wonder if you have any questions about your contract renewal or anything in general.
Who wants to start? Any who has questions? Greg, do you want to start or do you want me to start at the end here? No volume.
You can start in the room. I'll follow up.
Okay. Tim, do you have questions?
I just have one. Our present contract, as you stated, expires December 31st. If we wanted to increase our service level, if that's possible, I'm sure that would in fact, let's say add officers or whatever, that would increase the cost to the community,
Any enhancement would be at full additional cost to the municipality.
full cost.
There is currently a moratorium on officer enhancements. We can offer civilian enhancements to support the detachment. But there's a bit of a staffing issue right now, and we're not prepared to offer additional resources to some municipalities when we need them on the front line.
Thank you very much. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Welcome.
Do you elaborate on what some of those civilian enhancements could possibly be?
So civilian enhancements, detachment admin works. They're often court security officers who are civilians. And court security officer frees up a uniform officer who may be in there right now to go out and do front calls. Sometimes we have civilian enhancements at collision reporting centers, I believe. Those are a few.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Paul? Council Burgess? Deputy Mayor Grimes?
Thank you, Mayor Hand. Our last contract, did we not renew it for 4 years? Is this what's ending as a 4-year contract right now?
So yes, it ends at the end of this year, yes.
And it was a 4-year contract, correct?
I
I'm
believe so.
pretty sure it was.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
either.
yeah. And I think the thought process at the time was that we wanted our policing contract to come up in the first year of a council term, and that's why we went to the 4 years, if I'm recalling properly.
Yeah.
So that the council of the day would make the decision and take it into the first year of the next term of council, so. And then the CSPA, you'd explained it very well, and I appreciate that, but is that more of a housekeeping thing and we would not see real changes in the municipality when that's enacted?
I can't speak to the degree of change the municipality will experience when it comes into effect. Frontline policing by the OPP will continue seamlessly.
Okay, Thank
We
you.
don't expect any changes to the billing model.
okay, appreciate that. Thank you. That's all, Mayor Hand.
Yep, sorry.
Yeah, so with the CSPA, is it your understanding that Point Edward would still maintain a separate board, or is that decision still to come?
So the OPP detachment board, that would be between the municipality and the ministry.
So that would still, I mean, we just got an email saying that our current board can increase in size.
By two more people.
We're currently separate from the Lantern board has their own, and Point Edward has their own.
Mhm.
There's no guarantee that that will maintain. We'd have to negotiate that with the ministry.
That is between the ministry and the municipality. So the OPP is outside of that process. However, I believe the ministry has been in touch with municipalities about those boards.
They've definitely given us indication that our board size can increase.
Mhm.
I was of the understanding that it was the current existing board, but I can relook at the email again
Yeah,
and see if it says for the
I'm wondering if
new.
we misunderstood, because and that's why the letter is about what's to happen.
Yeah.
I thought they meant about what's existing. Because we just got it
Yep,
in,
I'll review
like
it
in the
again.
last week or so, so it said we could take on two new members, one has to be from council.
For your OPP detachment board.
Yes, and we would maintain our own separate board, because that's been a question.
Mhm.
That's been a concern for us, but they confirmed that we would continue.
Some detachments will have more than one OPP detachment board, so this may be one of them. The current target date that I've been given for implementation of the CSPA is spring of 2024.
Oh, it's not that
That's
far.
what they're
Okay.
aiming for.
Okay,
Yes.
Just a follow-up question then, Mayor Hayne. Does it matter how long we renew for if this is actually happening?
That's a very good question.
yeah,
Well, because this is a big piece of legislation and there are lots and lots of associated regulations. So I can only imagine the mountain of work that people are doing to get this legislation enacted. We don't know exactly when it will come out. So last year we did have some municipalities expect that the CSPA would be in effect. So they renewed for 1 year and we're here again and we're renewing for 1 year. That's not a problem from our perspective. We can keep renewing as we need to. If you want to avoid having to potentially renew if there's a delay in the CSPA, then you could opt for a 2 or a longer term if you like. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. It's up to you.
thanks for the clarification. So are we going to move this to? Do we make a recommendation now or move it to finance
Well,
to confirm that the length of time that we had discussed?
I think I think it should be in camera discussion of
Okay.
that.
Okay, so then we appreciate all the information we got. We'll confirm our decision and get back to you.
That would be
Okay.
wonderful.
But
Thank you.
it's
very
great
much.
to see you in person and great to see you.
My pleasure.
We appreciate the support.
When I get that email with your decision, I can have the contract or the paperwork, I should say. I can have the paperwork to you within a few days.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a lovely evening.
Yep, you do as well. Have a safe journey home.
Thank you.
You don't have to stay
Okay.
But you can.
unless you want to. Yeah. No, no, I appreciate your attendance and I'm sure you've had a long day. Okay, well, I'm going to move on to adoption of council minutes. And that would be for the meeting from September the 26th. I need a mover and a seconder, please.
I'll move.
Okay, and seconded by Council Burgess. Any business arising from, oh, sorry. Any questions?
I have 2 questions, Mayor Hayne.
Thank you.
New business number 5, do we have an update on those signs? For the welcome to Point Edward signs, Jim, you were going to call Dave Beatty?
Oh, I tried him once and didn't get a hold of him, and I haven't tried him since. So no, I have no update.
Okay. Under number 21, so we went in camera and we don't have the report out of the closed session meeting. And I was under the impression we're supposed to be putting something in there, right? A brief description.
Yeah, that should be.
Right? It should say like staff were given direction to do whatever.
Yeah, it should be amended. Just say that staff were directed to contact the OPP for this presentation we just had.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we can make that amendment.
Okay. Thank you.
So we can vote in favor of approving the amended
Yep, the minutes
Minutes.
as amended.
as amended, sorry, minutes as amended. All in favor? Thank you. Financial reports. The first one is general operations.
I'll move that the total revenues and general operations for the month of September 2023 in the amount of $613,928.51 be approved. And that the total expenditures and general operations for the month of September 2023 in the amount of $754,864.44 be approved.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Move on to environmental services.
Move that the total revenues in environmental services for the month of September 2023 in the amount of $0 be approved. And that the total expenditures in the environmental services for the month of September 2023 in the amount of $207,085.26 be approved. And that the updated financial statements for the month of August 2023 showing revenues of $155,430.52 and expenses of $114,618.81 be received and filed.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Counselor Mondu. Any questions? All in favor? Finance Committee for October 10th,
Finance, operations,
Operations.
operations.
sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped right down to number 4.
We'll
So
do it.
circumventing, sorry. Okay, Operations Committee meeting, October 10th.
I'll move that the operations committee minutes from the meeting of October 10th be received and filed.
You. Any questions?
I just have a couple things to point out, if I may. We are working on a water upgrade notice for the houses along St. Clair Street. We'll be sending it out to them. We're going to be working on the mesh software presentation at an upcoming meeting. We are working on putting a temporary washroom at Waterfront Park for the winter this year. And we are getting feedback from arena users about the insurance policy and that it's a bit cumbersome. And it's my understanding that staff will be looking at whether we can introduce an umbrella policy and the fee for the insurance will just be added to the rental. So we'll be getting a report back on that. And that's all that I have from that. Thank you.
So just on that note, the washroom closes, the waterfront washroom closes on October 31st, 30th, sorry. 30th. And we're hoping to have,
We will have a.
we will have a replacement washroom for the 1st of November. All in favor? Fire Committee,
I will move that the minutes from the Fire Committee, October 10th, 2023 be received and filed.
I'll second that.
seconded by Council Mondu.
I just want to mention that Fire Prevention Week was fantastic. I know that a lot of our team went into the school and I had the opportunity to talk with some of the staff and the students and they of course enjoyed it as always. Much appreciated.
And there was a good turnout at open house.
There was,
The weather held.
surprisingly.
Yeah. Any questions?
I just have one quick one, if I may. What's the status of the roof repairs for that facility?
It's ongoing. It's not complete. At least last I checked yesterday, it wasn't complete, but they're working away at it. It's going fairly well. Last
Okay.
week was a hiccup because of the weather, but
Yeah, but they're still on track. So.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I can, they were working hard today. I was down that way and I had heard it would be into next week. So
Okay, wonderful.
I think they even have the fire hall side is done
pretty much.
and they're on the library side. Okay, all in favor? Okay. Environmental Services, October 10th.
I'll move that the minutes of the Environmental Services Committee meeting held October the 10th, 2023 be approved as circulated.
I'll second that.
Questions? All in favor? Carried. Move on to Finance Committee.
I'll move that the minutes of the Finance Committee meeting held October 10th, 2023 be approved as circulated.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any questions?
I just got a comment to
Okay.
make on the
Sure.
minutes. Item 3 in new business was the Cats at Large report. And I'm just gonna question the CAO. Did you meet with the executive director of the Serenity Humane Society?
Yeah, so she said she has some information that she can share with us to. I mean, she covered off a few points that she thought should be included in a circular, and it sounds like we've got most of it, but she was gonna send me over some stuff anyway. Residents can bring cats to the Humane Society and they'll house them for people to, and then there's a fee to get them out. So,
Okay,
yeah, that's,
so there will be an informational campaign
there will be.
prepared for him,
Yep.
for the residents.
Yep.
Okay.
It's all ready to go, except we're waiting for the piece from the Humane Society just to see if there's anything that we could add to our information.
Thank you.
All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Move on to miscellaneous reports. First one is building permits.
I'll move that we receive and file the building permit report for September or up to October 19th, 2023.
Second that.
Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Committee of Adjustment decisions. Could we do this as a grouping or do you want to do it separately? I think grouping works. So 1 to 3.
Also move. We receive and file reports 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3.
I'll second.
Any questions on any of the 3?
I have a question, Mayor Hand.
Yes.
In regards to these, I've had some questions from residents on why these variances were brought forward when these houses are nearing completion.
Okay, so the first, the Victoria Ave one was not a minor variance, it was a severance. And the normal process is to, as long as it's gonna meet with the requirements of the zoning bylaw, do the severance after the house is built on a semi-detached home so that they make sure they get the dividing line on the common wall in the right spot. So that's why the
Sense.
and same thing with application BO2. So that's why the
Okay.
severances are happening afterwards. The reason for the minor variance happening kind of after the fact is because the building department of the county made a mistake in evaluating the building permit and did not realize that it was a semi-detached home. And so for a single family home, the setbacks, I believe on each side are only 1.2 meters. And the setbacks met that 1.2, they're larger than the 1.2 meters. However, because it's a semi-detached home, the requirement is actually 3 meters. And then the setback, the existing actual setback was approximately 1.85. So that's what necessitated the minor variance on that application.
All right, thank you.
So just to add to that, at the meeting, the manager of planning,
Building.
building services, and they came on to explain what had happened and, they regretted the error, but anyway, that's, some people thought it was because of the developer, but it was explained as how this all came to be. So that was corrected.
Good. No, that's why I asked to make sure that it gets out in this
Yeah.
public record. So yeah, clarifications are great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, we didn't vote. All in favor? Thank you. We'll move on to communications, receive and file, and it's 1 through 5.
I'll move
Also-
to, I'll move to receive and file 1 through 4.
Okay.
I like doing the St. Clair
Separate.
separate so that
Sure.
deputy mayor can go through any highlights if he has.
That's
some.
perfect. Thank you. Okay, 1 through 4 is the AMO.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Okay, we'll do, now number 5 is St. Clair Regional Conservation Authority.
So I'll move that number 5, the meeting highlights, the receive and file.
Thank you.
And is there a seconder? Thank you,
Councilor Bird.
Councillor. Thank you. And as predicted, I do have a couple highlights. So Highland Glen and the McEwen Conservation Areas were disposed of and are now owned by the town of Clinton, Wyoming. And so they will be responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of those facilities. We have worked on our seasonal camping fee schedule. Doesn't affect us as much unless you're going out camping from Prince Edward. And the Conservation Authority is very active in applying for grants through Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund, which there's a lot of money out there that the feds are providing. And I do applaud staff on their ability to identify grants and get them for us. And when we get the report back, I'll share with council where a lot of that money is going. That's all I have.
Thank you for sharing. Any other questions? All in favor? Thank you. Hey, we're going to move on now to new business. The first one is a request for reconsideration at 406 Arthur Street. This is in regard to a fence height.
So this, an email was sent in by the owner at 406 Arthur to request a reconsideration of council decision back in July to not grant the exemption. And so the process right now is if there's no discussion about the issue itself, this is just, first you have to decide if you are willing to reconsider the motion or not. So because there was no recorded vote, anybody can make a motion to reconsider if they wish to. And that's where we're at.
So just before we get into this, one of the things I said to CIO today is in future, I will recognize that we should be recording votes. It's not our habit to do that a lot unless it's really major issues. And I didn't realize that that would be a problem. So it's just something to note in the future because it wasn't a unanimous vote, but there's no record of it. Okay. So how,
So you should ask if there's a motion to reconsider.
okay, motion to reconsider.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Councillor Burgess.
And
Seconder,
I'll second it.
Deputy Mayor Grimes. Seconded it.
And then all in favor.
I just wanted to get it
All
on
in
the floor
favor.
to talk about it again because I've driven by the property a few times and looked like nothing's happened.
Mhm.
So I was curious if there's been feedback from the county.
So you should
Recorded,
deal with
yeah,
it.
recorded vote.
Yes, we'll have a recorded vote, please. Thank you. I just said from now on, we're gonna do,
So you might
Don't
know.
have to do that, recorded vote.
oh,
All.
and it was
Deputy
seconded
Mayor.
by Deputy Mayor Grimes. So I'll just hit on recorded and see what happens.
See what happens, yeah.
Okay,
All right.
so we're doing it now.
So Counselor Noctor. In favor or opposed for the motion to reconsider?
Opposed.
Counselor Mondu,
Opposed.
Counselor Burgess,
I'm in favor.
Deputy Mayor Grimes,
In favor?
and Mayor Hand.
Opposed.
So the motion fails and there will be no reconsideration. So we need to move on to the next page.
Okay, the next one is development charge review.
So this is, this item is a result, Counselor Mondu wanted to error in there, wanted to look into what it would take to establish development charges for the Village of Point Edward. Found a bylaw from 1999
Correct.
that implemented them for about a period of 5 years and has since long since passed. And so Councillor Mondu would just like to investigate what would be required to implement development charges going forward.
We need a mover and
Yeah,
second to
there's-
discuss it, please.
I'll
So
move.
you're moving it? Do I
Yeah,
have a
I'll move
second?
that, while staff prepare a report for council, investigate the steps involved, timeline and estimated cost to reestablish a developmental charge bylaw for the Village of Point Edward.
I'll second.
Okay,
We
discussion.
were,
Do we have to vote first? And then-
On,
we can
No,
discuss it.
that- No.
discussion.
No,
Okay.
because it's asking for a report. Don't we have to discuss it first to see if people agree or not agree?
Okay.
Hey, who wants to go first?
Well, since it's my motion. If we have a development charge, it may impose development charges to pay for increased capital costs required because of increased needs for services. This fee is paid to the municipality by the property developer. And they include services such as water supply, wastewater, stormwater, electrical, policing, fire, parks and rec services, bylaw enforcement, and emergency preparedness services. Today, these services are funded by the taxpayers, not developers. and casino revenue. Which we're aware is down from our pre-COVID levels. So as our village grows, the demand for our infrastructure grows as well. And I believe we need to make some changes to build some reserves for the future infrastructure cost to the village. And that's my statement.
I think it's important that we explore the option for sure of the development charge. Doesn't necessarily mean that we have to implement one, but I think it should be explored.
My understanding is it's a long process.
Mhm.
We have to have a study done, and then you've got, to see if it's even worthwhile. And that, we know there's a cost involved with that. There's a time limit involved with that, and then you've got. We're a couple years down the road before anything would happen, and it's not a small undertaking.
Paul, do you want to go next?
Do we have any information on where the province is on this? Because everything I've read, the province is taking steps to eliminate development charges so we can get more projects going. And that will recover costs through a greater tax levy because of the properties being developed. And I realize that's why I'm in favor of looking into it. At least we can find out, but the way I am reading is that the province is in the process of eliminating that.
Yeah, I would say, I read through a bit of information this afternoon and they're kind of leaning away from them. But they're still there as a possibility. So I would agree with your statement. I don't think they're eliminated, but. So I think looking into it as a possibility, we have the issue of, as you're aware, the email that I sent this morning from one of the potential developers that, so we have two fairly substantial developments that may happen in the village. And their reasoning for coming here, a big part of it is that we don't have development charges. They are also aware that if there are infrastructure costs, that they're responsible for them. So a lot of these things that you're allowed to charge for to cover with development charges, those two developers specifically know that they're responsible for paying the cost of the infrastructure anyhow. So you certainly can't do both. You would not be able to have the development charge and have them pay for the infrastructure, do one or the other. So that's, I haven't done a great deal of research into the development charges yet because I know the province is starting to shy away from them. And that's where my level of knowledge is at this point.
Deputy Mayor Grimes?
Yeah, so I'll be voting against doing a report. I think it's going to take up a lot of staff time. It could be spent on other priorities, and especially when this is something that the province isn't really warm to, development charges. I think we don't have a lot of, all the space that we have for development is pretty much spoken for, or the developers have started to share their plans with us. So they're operating with the mindset that we don't have development plans. So if we grandfathered those 3 or 4 or 5 that I know of, we don't have much space left that would even warrant recouping money. So we've been 20 years without. It's attracted some potential developers to our community. And as we've heard in the news, the province doesn't have a big appetite for development charges if this building plan. So I think it's just, we could get a report. It's going to take a lot of time to get done. And I think it's something that we would not end up moving forward. So, and with the government saying they'll provide grants for infrastructure as part of their Building Homes Faster plan, I think we would be able to take advantage of that. And as Jim clarified on what this developer's responsibilities for infrastructure, I think we'll be fine without going down this road. So those are my thoughts.
So my thoughts are on a similar vein, because I was thinking through, I have probably at least 5 developers that we're in discussion with. One of them's kind of quiet right now, but still in the background, has met with us. And all of them are aware of the fact that we don't have development charges. The letter that we received from the Homes Foundry owner today indicates, like, I'm distressed and this will cost, and we had made plans based on that it doesn't exist. the Building Canada Faster legislation is where they're saying there will be no development charges, and it's part of their cutting red tape and trying to make housing be built quicker. So that hasn't, it's legislation that hasn't been confirmed yet. So I think we're better to wait and see what happens with that proposal. Again, to save on staff time, to confirm what's going to happen in the future. Certainly, if we were to do it, I think we would have to have a grandfathering of the existing discussions, existing projects that have already been discussed with us and people are working behind the scenes. Which is, one of them's Holmes Foundry, one of them's Exmo Street, there's a couple more.
Just if
Yeah.
I can make a point, my concern is. A couple years down the road, or very immediate, when we get this wastewater study. We're gonna have, infrastructure costs there. We've got $6 million we're gonna spend on St. Clair Street. Right, so this development charges, you can't spend them today, they go into reserve. And you save them for when you require them. I know there is some clause in the bylaw that or the law that you need in the planning act, you need to use them so much every year or whatever, but it's kind of putting money aside for future, renewals, upgrades to your infrastructure. So, and right now, we're looking at a $6 million bill for St. Clair, right? And we don't, we're gonna be borrowing money for that. This way we could help, it would help us build up reserves. That's where I'm coming from. It's just, we gotta put money away for the future.
And I'm not saying it's not a good idea, it's just we're already in discussions with
Yeah.
people telling them that they're not gonna pay these charges. And they are knowing that we're going to have to spend money, and we will be looking at agreements with some of them on paying share. So it's not that they're not gonna pay something. We've already had those discussions in the background about what it might take, and we don't know yet until we get that study done. And again, I'm not saying not to do it, but I think we need to see what happens with this legislation before we ask the work get done on development charges,
Yeah.
if they do go away.
I'm just they're worrying about a further burden on the taxpayer. Because last year we were up 6%. What are we looking at this year with the, know that we've got some major costs coming up. Most likely, we don't have the numbers yet, but. So. Okay.
So, God.
Cut a motion on the table to ask staff to do a study.
Just, we can clarify for this. Jim, would you do this in-house yourself? Would you come back to us looking for a consultant? Because there's a lot of complexity in the whole process of coming up with development charges. So I don't think this is something that you could just whip off real quick. So if we approve this, what's your plan?
Yeah, I think my first step would be to find out even how to go about the process, and there would absolutely need to be a consultant. I don't have any idea what that might cost or not, So the first step would be to prepare a report, to come back and say, these are the steps and this is what the cost is going to be. I am certain it would involve a consultant. So.
I think by law, it has to be a consultant.
Yeah.
That recommends,
Yeah.
so.
So that would be, I mean. I would have to go out and get somebody to. Kind of help me put together what the process actually looks like. And then, put together an RFP, maybe talk to see if there's any similar size municipalities that have done the work recently. So that we can kind of get some idea of what cost might be. But there would be some substantial research, even just to get to the point of being able to bring a report to council saying these are the steps and this is what the cost might be. And then you'd prepare the RFP and go from there.
And we've already seen, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Yanni, go ahead.
Is that something that we could do before voting on this, like push it a little bit and then see what it would look like to
There-
cost wise?
There needs to be direction to even go to that first step. Yeah, like, I think
So it's a different motion.
Well, I guess I'd have to hear what Councillor Mondu's motion was again specifically.
Create a report.
Yeah,
Provide report to council, investigate the steps involved, timeline and estimated cost. To reestablish a developmental charge bylaw for the village of Point Edward.
Yeah.
Not asking for the bylaw, just asking to investigate. What's involved.
so I mean, I would reach out to planning staff. I believe the city of Sarnia has done a recent review, so I talk to them and see who they used. And, you know, I mean, I've done nothing about development charges ever. So it would be a brand new adventure for me, and if that's what you want me to do, that's fine. But I will need some support for it for sure, even just putting that initial report together saying these are the steps required and this is what the potential cost may be. I'm gonna have to reach out to, you know, do some research and find out.
Can I have a look at the wording of your?
Yes.
Like an option to table it into the new year.
Yes.
Well, yeah,
Okay,
I'm thinking of.
I wanna, the point is, I wanted to have a discussion. About. Future revenues.
Right.
Right, and this is one that came to mind. Because I know if you look at the Sarnia report, it's a significant amount of money. Like it's a lot, like per home, it's going from $12,000 to $24,000. Like, this is significant, like, not that we need to have that, but this is what their cost, it's all figured out on a per cost basis or whatever. So like they're, you know, ours used to be $1,600, I think, back in 2000. So.
Just if I may, that, yes, the cost, the potential revenue in Sarnia is significant, but only based on the fact that they have a lot of green space to develop. We just don't have it. The few empty lots that we have or areas for significant development are already owned by developers who are in talks with us with the premise that we have no development charge. Once those 5 or 6 major properties are developed, we don't have much space left to generate a development revenue, that's my opinion. Like,
The reason I suggested tabling it as an option is because we're in the middle of trying to hire another person. And we're gonna talk about that. We didn't get anyone from our original posting. It might be something that could be given to the new person to work on. This is a suggestion because you can't take that on right now.
I mean, it's a possibility, but I would think the person we're looking at hiring.
Doesn't
not-
fit.
I
Okay.
wouldn't think
Oh.
so. I mean,
no.
it's possible they
I
might
was
have
just
a little
thinking of another
experience,
body.
but
That's all.
yeah. To me, this is, I mean, our planners may have some experience in it. At least to guide through the process, they might, but our planning department is very stretched, very thin right now as well, so they don't have a whole lot of extra resources to put towards something like this. I mean, it's gonna be an outside consultant that's gonna, as Councillor Mondu,
Has to
if the
be.
legislation says it has to be an outside consultant. Again, I have no idea what the workload is. I have no idea what the time commitment is. I know very little about it because I've never been through it.
Should it go to budget process if we're talking a cost of a consultant?
So that's maybe, I mean, I think that's Councillor Mondu's motion at this point. I don't
Or
think
should it
I'd
still
have
wait?
to spend a whole lot of money to get to a point where I could have something for budget to say, you know, what's the process, what's the timeline, what's the cost? Bring that to the budget
That's all I'm
process.
asking.
I think if that's kind of what the intent of this motion is, I think we can
Okay, not a full
probably,
blown report yet,
yeah.
and that works.
High level.
Can Councillor Mondu amend his motion to capture, because it says to submit a report, can we just amend it to
To submit a report for budget purposes.
Yeah,
or
sure.
or just to come back to council with the process and cost to prepare a report on development fees. Because all we're looking at now is just what's going to be involved in it, not actually the report, right?
Exactly, and that's what my motion today states.
Okay.
Investigate steps involved, timeline, and estimated cost.
Okay, yep, fair enough.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor? Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Number 3. Bylaw enforcement officer.
Another one of mine. And here again, I'm asking for, I'll make a motion that staff provide a report to council investigated costs involved in hiring a part-time parking enforcement officer for the village of Point Edward. If I get a second there,
I'll second that, Mary Ann.
Thank you.
The village has received many complaints over this issue in years. And the recent one raised was, there was a problem with the 2-hour parking limit on Mara Street. It's not being followed. A resident in the area mentioned that to me, and I've checked it myself, and that it's tough parking down there for anybody. We know the overnight parking ban is in effect as of December 1st, and we are aware of residents who don't follow that bylaw. Now that one affects Public Works, village residents, and Sarnia Transit, as our village streets are not getting proper snow removal. This need was also brought forward at our strategic planning meetings. It was included in some of the feedback from the residents. And just a note that we just had the OPP municipal service delivery presentation tonight, and bylaw enforcement is not included in that OPP municipal service delivery for parking unless it's a safety issue. So just that there is a need in the village, and I was just wanting to see if we can get a report so we can look at it a budget or sooner.
Questions? Deputy Mayor Grimes?
Yeah, I'll support this. I agree with Councilor Mondu. We can put in as many bylaws as we want without enforcement. They're just a waste of the paper. And I do think also we should be, as part of this renewal with OPP, is asking them as an enhancement, can we get them more directly involved in parking on a proactive basis rather than just complaint safety basis, so that they're part of their daily routine is to do it. So I agree with the need for enforcement.
Does the OPP, have they not enforced parking for us in the past?
They do a bit of it when we ask them to. And there's 1 or 2 officers that will do it on a kind of just a random basis on their own. But quite often it requires an email from me, or usually from me,
For complaint
asking
based.
them to go to a specific property or there's 1 or 2 officers that will just, especially around winter stuff, to go out and do a bit, but it's not very consistent at all.
My concern is just adding another expense for an employee. And I don't hear it as much as what everybody else does. I did hear it one night though from my son's a volunteer firefighter, and a few of his volunteer firefighter colleagues got parking tickets where there was no snow on the ground. They were going to be ready to respond and thought it was okay if they parked on the street during the winter months. No harm, no weather. And my concern is that having somebody whose job it is to justify their existence, we start getting into ticketing, things like that, where maybe someone's at the hairdresser on Michigan Ave for more than 2 hours. I know a couple females in my home that go there that sometimes spend more than 2 hours at the hairdresser on Michigan Ave if it was 2-hour parking there. Not trying to be malicious, I don't know if they want to come out and move their car in that situation. That's my concern. And it would go the other way and penalize people.
You know, as far as a fireman parking on the street, I don't, like, how would the officer know? Like, if they're going around looking at, and the car's left all night, they wouldn't necessarily know whose car it was.
No, but some of
So
them
I-
rent a room and you've got one driveway and maybe 2 or 3 cars.
Yeah,
I know on my house, I have the luxury of a double
Yeah,
wide driveway.
no,
But a lot of these young men that I know that are friends of my son, they're renting a room so they can be a first responder in the village. And one night, a bunch of them got parking tickets. And they were trying to be in a position where they could respond if their pager did go off in the middle of the night. And again, it wasn't snowing. We got very little snow last year. It's just one of those things that I think can be a contentious issue the other way.
I've never had anybody bring that issue up, and I don't know if that's something that could be, like, if there's dispensation for allowing that, I don't know, because I could see it getting abused, but I don't know, it's an idea. We'd have to look, we'd have to ask. If anybody has wanting to pursue that idea, but. Any other questions? Sorry, just one thought. Counselor Grimes made Deputy Mayor Grimes made the suggestion of checking about the item on our contract. Maybe this is premature then, if we can get it done within the contract. I mean, we can just have that conversation before we go to looking at hiring.
Well, I think to me, it would be very expensive to hire the OPP to do traffic enforcement on an ongoing basis. It would possibly provide a little bit of consistency. But I mean, I think it should be one of the options looked at. So I should reach out to the OPP and ask them what's going to be,
Right.
what would it cost us to have an officer do? Now, we also heard them say enhancements aren't a possibility right now. We cannot hire extra officers to do this specifically.
But it's with
If
what
they
we
do
already
the
have.
existing. Yeah, with what we already have, they don't do it. We've asked them sometimes to do it proactively, they don't. So,
Deputy Mayor Grimes?
Yeah, if I may, rather than going through the contract negotiator up at headquarters, this might be a conversation to have with Inspector Avery on how can we improve our parking bylaw enforcement in the village. Go to him for ideas. He may come back to you saying that he may be able to manage it in-house for us, or he may have other options available to us. And I think we've heard about third-party companies that are out and about that you contract out. So I don't see us hiring a part-time or full-time employee for this. I think we should find out who can do this on a contracted basis, and if it's 4 hours, 8 hours a week or whatever, and they're directed on what areas to hit. And usually once you hit an area 6 or 8 times a year, your compliance goes way up. So the people over at Mara know they're not getting a ticket ever. So they just park there whenever they want. And if we handed out tickets 6 times a year, I think you'd get better compliance. So I think that's an option.
so I think those are all things I can look at. I can look at third-party companies. I can look at
Talk to Chris.
somebody that might be interested in doing it on a part-time basis as an option. And I can
Yep.
talk to APP and see if they feel they can give more than they are now. So,
Okay. So we
And also, the county, because the county bylaw,
have
They-
the option to
they
bring them in.
can do that as well, right? Yeah, just get
And
information.
I think we've done that in the past, I think too. So that should be a fourth option in the report. Yeah.
They've come in and done a sweep.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if it was free or not free.
it's not.
I don't
No.
think it's free. No. Sorry. But might be less expensive. Okay, so all in favor? We'll get a report back later. Okay, so the next piece is community events and public announcements.
Or if there's any other regular, like
Sorry, is there any other
usually.
new business that anyone wants to bring forward? Pardon?
Sorry.
Well, yeah, I had some things and I was lumping it into this.
Okay.
Okay, anyone have anything they want to bring forward?
Are we
Um,
on to community events? Is that where we are?
Well, any new business,
Okay.
I don't know. I don't really know what mine is. Some of it's events, some of it might be new business. So, okay, I'll bring in one, I'll call it new business. So Blue Water Health is currently in code orange because of a cyber attack. So I just wanted to bring this forward because it affects everyone in Lambton County that uses the hospital. So the hospital is asking for patience as everything is taking longer due to manual operations. Some appointments will be rescheduled and they've started calling some things like scans and whatnot are definitely getting rescheduled. So far, they haven't had to cancel surgeries, but the things go together. So if you can't scan necessarily, they've asked doctors in ER not to, oh, sorry,
That's okay.
I'm sorry, but babies are okay.
I can't control that.
Yeah, so doctors in ER know that they can't call for tests and whatnot because they don't have the capacity. So the cyber attack is involving the Erie St. Clair region, that all of these partners use the same internet company, or sorry, IT company called Transform. So just wanted to bring that up, but it's getting more impactful today on what they're going to be able to carry on with. So just keep that in mind if you need to schedule something. So this, anybody else new business? I think the rest of my stuff is pretty. Oh. Related to our OPP. So there was a vote at county council last week regarding payment for policing. So the county gives a $600,000 grant towards policing that's divided up proportionally over the all the municipalities. Point average share currently is $17,964. So they were looking at a vote to leave it in for this year or to rescind it. And it's based on the fact that they're not taking in the provincial offenses court fine revenue was what they've been using for the shared agreement, and the revenue's down and has continued to shrink. So anyway, the vote was leave it in place for now. So just wanted to say we will still get that money.
Just a question
Yeah,
on that.
yeah.
For 24, they're gonna leave it in place,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And then, because,
I don't know beyond that.
well, I didn't see the meeting, so,
Yeah,
but
I
I know that's all I
It
saw.
may come up again depending,
Well, it
depending
sounded like it may
what
disappear,
right?
so that'll be
But-
a budget hit for us.
Yeah, but said like if they voted not to rescind it now. And then another, something else from last week's meeting. The County of Lambton Housing and Homeless Plan. They have a milestone that in 2024, 75 more affordable housing units will be built. So I'm just bringing that forward as an item. They're looking at the various projects, but topical right now is a program called Out of the Cold. So the Inn of the Good Shepherd ran this program previously, and it's going to restart as of October 23rd. So there's 28 beds, but they're for males only. And they will be at the Laura Lee Church. So they've had this church as a support center, but not for sleeping, not like it closes at 4 o'clock every day. But now they're going to have these out of the cold arrangements, and it will be run by the Inn of the Good Shepherd at Laura Lee Church. So just bringing that up, if anybody knows anybody that's looking or to be aware of, there is a place for them, for people to go out of the cold. The other things I have are November the 5th is the Point Edward Remembrance Day Parade. I'm going to be out of town, and Greg is going to cover, Deputy Mayor Grimes is going to cover the laying of our wreaths. I have talked to the people at the service club and made them aware that this is happening. And the wreaths will be in the office when they're needed. We have both of the wreaths here. I will be attending the November 11th, which is the Sarnia Remembrance Day Parade. And I gave them the money earlier this week for the wreaths for that one. This will start shouting out Christmas in the Village December 2nd. So the planning is going on for that. And I think that's all the notes that I have. Anything else?
I have.
Mayor.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was able to go into the to Bridgeview Public School and speak with the grade class this past week. They're very excited for Christmas in the Village. Just wanted to add that on.
Yeah.
And some of them would like to help with the festivities next year. So they had enjoyed talking about local government for local government week. And some of them are very keen in getting involved. So we look forward to looking into ways to get our local students involved.
Okay, so we can. Maybe they can get in touch or they can make the request and we can put it to Shelley. So they're not talking about this December, they're talking about in the next year. Okay, it's good. And we have had kids dress up and stroll through the streets and sing and things like that. So sure she can find jobs. Okay, Deputy Mayor Grimes, you had something?
Yeah, just to circle back on that policing grant that we get from the county, and you said it used to be based on the provincial offense notice revenues, and they're down. I wonder if the county would consider doing that grant in the same way we treat the MAT tax, in that, so if they get $600,000, they put it in reserves, pay it out the following year, and that so that you can get a projection of how much it's going to be based on the previous year's revenue. Just a thought on, then that would give us some consistency to the amount. So if fines are up, revenue's up. If the fines are down, then we all go through that. So just a thought. That's all I have.
Oh, I did read at the library last week. I read to the children for library week, so that was fun. I probably had 12, so that was good. That's all I had.
Okay.
Anything else?
Think, right,
Sorry.
was.
Nope, nothing else. Oh, sorry.
All right. We'll move on to bylaws.
So this bylaw is the open burning bylaw, which I got approval just after the last council meeting. I got final approval from the Solicitor General for our fines. So I've been talking with Kelly about preparing tickets to have, and she's recommending we use provincial Part 1 offense tickets rather than getting our own printed up. I don't anticipate that we're going to be issuing a whole lot of tickets. So I think that's what I'm going to do. She's given me a sample ticket, and then I have to go over to the court building to get them. But then anybody can issue, like anybody that's authorized as a bylaw enforcement officer can issue those tickets. So I think that's the way we're going to go, at least for now, until if it becomes a whole lot, then we can revisit printing of tickets. But for now, I'm just going to use these Part 1 offense tickets. I've sent an email out to the sergeant for the OPP to sit down with him and go over things again. Hoping to hear back from him shortly, because I also need to hear from him about the Remembrance Day Parade. But anyway, this bylaw is the third and final reading for that bylaw, now that it's finally approved by the Solicitor General.
And through you, Marianne, Jim, will you also be sitting down with the fire department when you meet with the OPP about the bylaw?
Yeah,
Just-
I think that's a good point, that
Do
to
it
kind of
together.
go through that checklist with them.
Yeah, with everybody. Yeah.
That's a good idea, for sure.
I think
And-
better to group.
Yeah. And the education piece is ready to go. The-
It is, yeah, I haven't, that's the one thing that we were waiting for on there, was if the OPP were okay with us putting down their non-emergency number as the number to call. And yeah, I'd completely forgotten about having that, but yeah, Kara had that already probably 6 or 8 weeks ago to go out, other than that phone number piece. So, yeah.
I'll move the motion.
Okay.
That bylaw 18 of 2023 being a bylaw to regulate the open burning in the village of Point Edward be read a third time and finally passed this 24th day of October 2023.
A second.
Seconded.
Can I ask for a recorded vote, please?
Thank you.
Wait for Jen to be
Yep.
ready there. Yep. Okay, Counselor Knocker.
I'm in favor.
Okay, Counselor Mondue,
In favor?
Counselor Burgess,
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Grimes,
In favor.
and Mayor Hand.
Nah, no, just kidding. Okay, so that's carried unanimously. And at this time, we're going to move into an in-camera session to talk about some personnel issues
Personnel and property.
and property. Thank you.
I'll move the council adjourn to an in-camera session and discuss matters related to personal matters. About an identifiable individual and the security of property of the municipality.
Second.
Thank you, Burgess. All in favor?